Good day. Thank you for joining me today. It's your man, OG, coming to you with part three. Been receiving a lot of feedback, some positive and definitely some negative. Those who refuse to believe the truth, those who refuse to change their views, even with the facts staring them in the face. A lot of my, uh, I'll just say certain people, uh, as they're wanting to try to dilute the truth, are arguing about now which part of Africa that one thing or another came from. If you're born in Tennessee, you're an American. If you're born in Russia, you're a Russian. If you're born in England, you're probably English. I think that's the way it works. If you're born in Africa, you're an African. Period. I know that hurts. People don't want to be Africans, I guess. But the fact remains, at that time, the landmass, which was all called Africa, included Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, all of that area, Africa. So, I'm of the belief that if we deal with the beginning, if we deal with the parents, then it helps us to understand the children. This is what I believe. Okay? And so, for example, when we're talking about the three religions which I'm talking about, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, okay, they had a beginning. There was a nucleus, okay? Abraham. Abraham was born 1675 BC. 1675. That's when he was born. He didn't do anything yet, okay? He was born then. And until he was born, the word Moses was never spoken. The words Jew, Hebrew, Harabu, never spoken before he was born. That started with Abraham. Okay? So, if we know that, and we know where things started at, then we know where the other religions, which borrowed from Judaism, where they got their information from. The information came from Judaism. And at that time, it didn't exist. The time I'm talking about, it didn't exist yet. There was no Adam and Eve. There was no Garden of Eden yet. There was no Moses yet. Okay, at that time. All right. So what I'm saying is, if you understand the children, the parents, then you have a better understanding of the children. There's nonsense being said that Islam was the first of the three religions. That's just not the truth. People wanting to believe that that's the truth, but it's not the truth. Okay? How do I know it's not the truth? How I know is when you read the Torah, right? It never makes a mention about the Bible because it came before it. But when you read the Bible, you see the mentions of the Torah. When you read the Quran, the Holy Quran, it never says anything about the Bible. Excuse me. When you read the Holy Quran, it speaks about the Bible and it speaks about the Torah. Okay, let me say that again because I stuttered a little bit there. When you read the Holy Quran, it speaks about the Bible and it speaks about the Torah, which preceded it. Okay, the Torah and the Bible never speak about the Quran. Okay, that came later. Okay, the Quran came about when Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Bilal, and Omar the Great made a pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay, the Ethiopian ambassador to Mecca was uh, Bilal, who was an attorney, even though he was a slave. A slave isn't always somebody who has to dig a hole or pick a crop. Sometimes there were slaves that were doctors and lawyers and things, and he was the slave. Okay, eventually married to a woman named Khadijah. All right, they made a pilgrimage to Mecca, and during the Hijra, they had to leave Mecca, and Muhammad then, who was admittedly illiterate, became the head of the new religion, which borrowed from the Christianity and borrowed from Judaism. The new religion, Islam, outside of Medina, is where they constructed what this would be. Okay? And even though he was admittedly illiterate, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and they wanted, to an extent, thinking about Bilal being the leader of the religion, but he didn't have the charisma of Muhammad. So the decision for him to be the head and leader of this new religion was made. Okay? This is the fact. Again, I know people are going to be upset about it, but this is the fact. Okay? And like I said, until Abraham came along in 1675, all right, a lot of the things that were written about later had not happened yet. Okay? Because it started with him. So let's be, clear about that, and then we're able to move forward. But we have to understand where we're coming from to know where we're going. Okay? So this is my point. And just so we're clear, it says in the books, Moses, which didn't come along before Abraham, 1675, much later. It says Moses was educated in the ways of the Egyptian priests. What are the ways of the Egyptian priests? Let's take a look at it. Okay? There's a book, the oldest book known to man. I challenge you to find an older one. Prove me wrong. Called the Book of the Dead, or the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, or the 42 Admonitions to Ma'at. All the same book. Okay? The first book, the oldest book ever found. Right? Because the Egyptians, African Egyptians, discovered papyrus, paper. And in discovering papyrus, they also, had the knowledge of ink. Okay, so they were able to write the first book. Okay, and that book was already edited many times before the birth of Abraham. But in the book that followed, that spoke about Moses, it says Moses was learned in the ways of the Egyptian priests. And what is that? That's 40 years. Leaving your home at 7 years old and going into the priesthood and staying until 40 years. Not going home, not visiting your parents, nothing like that. Staying there for 40 years. So at 47 years of age is when you were allowed to leave. Okay? And what did they study? The 7 liberal sciences. And they also studied the 42 admonitions to Ma'at. And what is that? That is negative admonitions, right? So it's, I have not sinned against my mother or my father. I shall not steal from my neighbor. 42 of them. So basically we're to believe that Moses, who had to say that every single day, like in America we say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every day in school as children coming up, this is what they had to say every morning. They had to say the negative admonitions to Ma'at. Okay, so somehow, according to the books, Moses went up on the mountain and came back down with 10. I shall not take God's name in vain. I shall not sin against my mother and my father. I shall not lie against my neighbor. Okay, okay. So you're telling me this coincidence now? This is thousands of years before it was written in the Bible. You got to remember now. Okay, when the Bible come along, all right, and was pulled X amount from the Torah, which is the Old Testament. Okay, this was done by Pantheus and Boetius. Okay, they got together and they formed Christianity. All right, look it up. Look the names up. Okay, Pantheus, Boetius. Okay, after that, then the for Islam, the Muslims, as far as Muhammad ibn Abdullah and Bilal and Omar the Great, that came after that. All right. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that even in the publications, even in the books that were written with the knowledge of that time, okay, if this is what you're using as your reference, it's giving you hints to what was going on and what happened at that time. That's the beauty of it. Okay, so but I'm just concerned with the facts of things. This is why I'm bringing you the facts of this issue. Okay, it wasn't until certain things happened that caused some of the things that we are reading about. Okay, I'm going to take you to a place called Philae, at least at that time. Okay, where you will see on the inside, okay, of the wall, where God Kanum, on his potter's wheel, made man. Okay, this is way before the story in Genesis usually on the first page, of God making Adam and Eve out of clay. Was the same exact story. Okay, and that it was borrowed, stolen, plagiarized, whatever it is that you want to say, from that story, okay, to what it became in the Adam and Eve story, okay. And also, not to mention, you can also find what's called the Black Madonna and Child on the side of the wall. Okay, what's the Black Madonna and Child? It's the same exact image that you'll see in Rome in the Pope's private chambers on the wall. Black Madonna and Child. Look it up. Just put in a search, Black Madonna and Child, and you'll see it for yourself. This is a story told thousands of years before the Bible was written about the they call Osirian drama, which was Osiris, okay, who was the god, his wife Asur, Isis, and son Horus. Okay, and the story about how it is that Setiphon or Satan killed Osiris, and then Isis went to the god of death and prayed to bring Osiris back, which was done. And then in this story, which was done, and then Setiphon killed him again and spread his body parts all over the earth. Okay, and then Isis, being a dutiful wife, then went and collected up all the parts to put them back together, and she missed one part. She couldn't find one part, and that was supposed to be his male genital part. okay, which supposedly was thrown into the Nile River and eaten by the Nile catfish. That's why people there don't eat catfish today. So it's said, okay. And so what she did was she raised a monument that could never be knocked down, taken down to his male part, and that's why you see the obelisk sticking straight up, which we have in Washington, D.C. right now called Lincoln Memorial. You start to then see where things from this time, people knew what they were doing. People knew, but they weren't concerned about that. They were just concerned about the truth. That's why you see the obelisk, the same exact one that's in Egypt, same exact one that's in Washington D.C. Okay, when you look on the back of the dollar bill, you see a pyramid. Is that a coincidence? On the back of the dollar bill, U.S. dollar bill, it's a pyramid, and on top of it is the all-seeing eye. That's the eye of Horus, which Horus lost when he went to avenge his father's death against Set-Typhon, his uncle, and he lost one eye. That's the all-seeing eye of Horus. That's the same eye. Take your dollar bill out right now. Look on the back of it. I'm sorry this truth hurts you. No, I'm not. We had too much lies. Lies are not helping us. Let's start to tell the truth. Let's start to treat each other with love and respect and not think somebody's superior to somebody else. The lies gone on long enough. Too long. I have it here. The first book. The oldest book known to man. Can you see it? You don't believe it? Show me another one. I challenge you. I dare you. Put it in the comments. Show me an older book than this. You can't do it? Oh well. Hit the subscribe. Hit the bell notification. Coming out soon. Part 4. We diving deep, people. We're going to get even deeper. It's getting ready to get ugly. Just like me. Peace.